All right, so we are starting my favorite unit this semester, yeah. Okay, so I abbreviate it as trig, but it is trigonometry. If you remember in the last unit, we solved for like the height of a building using indirect measurement, right? Where we did like shadow to shadow, height to height. We can use trig to find measurements as well. So when we get back from break, we're going to spend 3 days in class doing a project where we go out and measure like the height of the J building or the height of a lamppost without actually measuring the height. Yes, Jaden.
28.
Oh, apparently I want to go back a year. Thank you. Okay. Also, in this unit, you have to have a calculator that is has the trig. It's that scientific that has the trig button. So if you look at your calculator right now, you should see across, like right in the middle, sine, cosine, and tangent. SIN, COSTAN. Everyone see those on their calculator? Okay. We are going to use these buttons the entire time. This is a calculator-based unit. I can give you a paper where you have to calculate it on your own, but that's a lot of multiplication and a lot of long division on your part. Okay, so you need a calculator. This today, not so much, but in general, we are going to need calculators. Okay. Trig only deals with right triangles. So everything that we do in this unit will be a right triangle. Okay. Everything we do deals with right triangles. If it's not a right triangle, we cannot use trig functions. So let's call this triangle ABC. So we have a right triangle, and it's triangle ABC. Let's talk about some things you know or some things you can label about this right triangle. It's a right triangle, yes. Okay, has a 90-degree angle. All the angles equal 180. Okay, let's think about the side lengths real quick. What do you know about this side? Is there a name for that side? Hypotenuse. Okay, the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. That's going to be important. The hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. Now, does anyone remember what these ones are called? The legs. Ooh, it's intense out there. Okay. Now, when we are talking and using trig functions, we're going to have something called a reference angle. Your reference angle will never be your 90-degree angle. It will always be one of the other two. Okay? So, let's pretend for right now that my reference angle is angle A. Do you agree that this is still the hypotenuse? Okay, no matter what, that's still the hypotenuse. Now, this leg over here is opposite of angle A. So this is my opposite side from angle A, because angle A is my reference angle. Okay, so across from angle A is my opposite side. Right next to angle A is my adjacent side. So if angle A is my reference angle, the hypotenuse doesn't change. Across from it is opposite. Right next to is adjacent. Are we okay with that? Yeah? Okay, so what if C is my reference angle? If C is my reference angle, is this still the hypotenuse?
Yeah.
Yes, because it never changes. What would this side be? The opposite side from angle C. I know there's a lot of lines. And then what would this side be? Adjacent. So depending what your reference angle will determine which side is opposite and which side is adjacent. All right. So I told you on your calculator you have 3 trig buttons. The first one, and I know it reads sin, but it's sine. Okay? Because technically there's an E there. So sine, which is also the SIN button. Sine is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The opposite over the hypotenuse. And you'll have numbers for all of these. So opposite over hypotenuse. Then we have cosine, or just COS is how it's abbreviated. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And our last one is tangent, or abbreviated TAN. And that one is opposite over adjacent. So you're going to have to memorize basically these fractions and which one goes where. But I'm going to give you a really cool acronym that will help you tremendously in this unit. Okay, so if you can remember the acronym, you can remember the ratios. So the acronym is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Okay? So if you can remember the acronym, you can remember the ratios, because look what happens. It's the sine equals the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is what I have here. Cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So instead of remembering the ratio, if you can remember SOHCAHTOA, you know what everything stands for. Do we see that? Yeah? Maybe? Yeah? 2 people? Okay. So SOHCAHTOA. My recommendation to you as we go through this unit is you write SOHCAHTOA at the top of your paper every single time, so that you only have to memorize that, and you'll know what O, H, A all stand for, and then obviously it's sine, cosine, tangent. Okay, SOHCAHTOA. All right. So we are going to write each trig ratio as a fraction and a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. It's not as confusing as it sounds, I promise. I'm going to do it with you. I just want you to copy. Write each trig ratio. Once you see numbers, it starts to make a little more sense too. Okay, so I mentioned you only can use right triangles, right? And we need to be able to label the opposite side, the adjacent side, and the hypotenuse. So if I look at all three of these problems, it tells me I want the sine of r, the cosine of r, and the tangent of r, which means my reference angle is r. That's the angle that I need to look at. And that's how I will label all of my sides. Okay? So which side is the opposite of angle r? 12, the TS, right? Across from angle r is my opposite side. You need to label everything as we go right now. Until you are masters at this, you need to label everything. What is RS? What is RS? The hypotenuse, because it's across from the 90-degree angle. So I'm just labeling. Which means what's left, and which is right next to angle R, is my adjacent side. Okay, so right now all I've done is label. So one more time, across from angle R is the opposite. Across from the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. Right next to angle R is the adjacent side. Are we okay with that? Yes? Some of us not so much. Okay. Now, I'm finding the sine of R. What is sine? Go back up to your ratios. What is sine? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. What is the opposite side? 12. What is the hypotenuse? 13. So that's my ratio. As always, you should reduce it if you can. Can you reduce 12 and 13? No, but you also need it as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth. So what do you get when you divide? You get 0.92. Okay, so let's do cosine. What is cosine? Adjacent over hypotenuse. What's the adjacent side? 5. The hypotenuse is 13. Can I reduce 5 over 13? No. And what is that as a decimal? 0.38. And tangent is what two pieces? Opposite over adjacent. So my opposite is 12. My adjacent is 5. Now that's an improper fraction, which is fine. Can I simplify the improper fraction? Nope. What is it as a decimal? 2.4. Okay, so first step for you is to label your sides. Which side is the opposite, the adjacent, and the hypotenuse? Once it's labeled, as long as you know what the ratios are and or you remember SOHCAHTOA, you can set up a ratio. Okay? You can remember what? SOHCAHTOA? Okay, so why don't you try this one? Now, before I have you go off and try these, I want you to pause for 1 second and look at my 1, 2, and 3. What do you notice about the 1, 2, and 3 I'm asking you to solve? It has 2 different reference angles. Okay, so you need to label all the sides according to angle B, and you need to label all the sides according to angle A. Okay, kind of like we did up here, up at the top where I looked at each angle separately. So I want you to work with your group and see if you can label all the sides and set up the proportions. Start with one angle at a time, so maybe do all the B's, and then go back and do angle A. Okay? All right, where would we like to start? What do we want our reference angle to be? B? Okay, so let's start with B. So B is my reference angle. What side is this? The one with the arrow? Opposite. Okay? Across from the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse, and right next to it is adjacent. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to fill in what I can. So sine of B. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So my opposite is 24. My hypotenuse is 25. I cannot reduce that. So when I plug it into a calculator, I get 0.96. What other one can I do without changing anything? The tangent of B. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite is 24. Adjacent is 7. Can I reduce that at all? No. So as a decimal, it's 3.43. Okay? Now, my reference angle is going to switch to A, so I have to relabel things. So if my reference angle is A, does the hypotenuse change? No. What does this become? The opposite side. And this one is adjacent. Okay, because my reference angle changed, my sides change. Cosine is what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent now is 24. My hypotenuse didn't change, so I get 0.96.
Why was I being attacked? She just said you were right, so I just want to.
Okay? So, what would be confusing? Someone tell me something that might be confusing. Okay, hold on. Shh, focus. Someone tell me something that maybe was confusing. Having to switch reference angles. So you need to make sure that you are looking at your questions and understanding what angles you have. Start with one and then switch when you have to. Okay? These will be the only ones where you'll have to switch. When we actually start solving, you'll just have one reference angle. Okay? Yeah. When this angle changes here. So I had B, so I label my sides based on angle B, and then this is angle A, so I have to switch my sides based on angle A. And the only ones that are going to switch are the adjacent and the opposite, because the hypotenuse will stay. Okay? What else? Nothing else? How do we do on that? Good? Okay, so let's learn how to use our calculator real quick. You don't need a ton of space. I'm going to show you. Okay, so we're going to use our calculator to find each trig ratio, and we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. And I'm going to show you how to use your calculator. So the first one we're going to find is the cosine of 76. Now 76 is a degree. Okay? These angles, once we have different numbers, those will be degrees. Right? So, everyone have their calculator handy? Make sure it's on and doesn't say syntax error. Okay. Everyone find the sine, cosine, tangent buttons on your calculator? Now I'm asked for the cosine of 76, so I'm literally pressing the cosine button and typing in 76 and pressing enter.
Sick, that's so easy.
So press your cosine button and put in 76. Yours you might have to do backwards, Tiger. I want everyone to plug it into their calculator and make sure they get this answer, because if you don't have a TI, you might have to plug yours in differently. Make sure you get 0.24. Did anyone not get that and need to know how to use their calculator? Okay, give me 1 second. I would like you to find the sine. Ooh. The sine of 8 and the tangent of 82. So take a second and find the sine of 8 and the tangent of 82. The sine of 8 and the tangent of 82. Okay. Can someone tell me what the sine of 8 was? Connor. 1. Say it again. 1.4?
0.1.
Okay. So 0.14. Did everyone get 0.14? Okay. Someone tell me what the tangent of 82 was. Tangent of 82. 7.12. Okay, questions? All right.